So the first law of thermodynamics. How are you feeling about energy these days? Do you have any of it? You know, there's another kind of energy that the laws of thermodynamics address, and that's negative energy, or the energy or the energy that gets transferred out of a system. I think that's kind of like the action that stopped the ball on the pendulum. It'd been hot with movement, and when it stopped, the heat left it. And that heat, the energy was gone. And I can imagine that some of you are feeling like the energy has been sucked out of you lately, like you're unable to move. I'm no scientist, I'm certainly not a physicist. Still, I can find some solace in the understanding that energy, or for our purposes what we might call life force, can neither be created or destroyed. Energy cannot be created or destroyed, only transformed. And therefore, the trick for us as human beings is to learn better how to collect energy, to transform it to use in living purposeful lives of love and justice. And when we've used it up, to find ways to gather it again so that we can restore our energy for the work that we have to do. We are right now in a collective before. We're anticipating an oncoming and collective after. And after, that is a big looming unknown filled with possible severe consequences. After Tuesday. After all the ballots are counted, after all the votes are certified, after. Some of us are moving around so quickly that we're just trying to find as many ways as possible to influence what happens. And so others are finding that their energy is really dissipating, making it really hard to concentrate or get anything done. And some are frozen in place, unable to move, incapacitated by fear and anxiety. Our nerves are frayed. Our behavior is erratic and unpredictable. And however you're responding, I don't think it's a stretch to say that these are dark days, a time when it can really feel like it's all hopeless. So given that, what can we do to restore our grounding, our energy, our hope? Now, maybe hope is a difficult word or concept for you, so let's talk about that. Of course, over the years as a minister, I've been part of many conversations about hope. People struggle with the word. Some find it a useless and vapid concept and kind of irrelevant optimism, idealistic. Others think of hope as being a matter of having faith, trusting that things will work out, that the universe will take care of things, or that something or someone else has got your back. It's going to be okay. Well, my take on hope has been informed by two different activist authors. First, Joanna Macy, who speaks about active hope in her book of the same name. Rather than being a kind of blind idealism, she describes having hope as the practice of being active participants in bringing about what we hope for. Hope for her is an intention to choose what we aim to bring about. Well, of course, to practice something, even to have an intention, takes some energy. So we're going to come back to that. My second inspiration is Rebecca Solnit. In fact, I titled this message after her book, Hope in the Dark. She says that hope is a state of mind. It's not a belief that everything's going to be okay, but it's a belief that faces reality with a very broad perspective, a view of time, a view across time and space, that allows us to see the possibilities, a view that can help us see what we're called to do. Now, both of them are saying that hope is inextricably partnered with action, with energy. So if they're right, and I think they are, to find hope, especially in dark times, we need to have kinetic energy, the energy to act. And kinetic energy can't exist without potential energy, And potential energy can't be stored up if at the same time negative energy is flowing out. And these days, these times, this chaos in the world is just sucking it out of us. And if you're like me, it can seem like we're bailing water out of a sinking boat. A few weeks ago, I listened to a podcast about the new book, Patriot, which was just released about the life of Alexei Navalny. You know, Navalny was the Russian opposition leader and anti-corruption activist who was poisoned and survived, but then later died while held as a political prisoner. I immediately added his name to my notes for today's assembly because it made me just really curious about how or if he was able to do what he did without hope. Which then led me to watch the recent documentary about him. I wanted to understand where he got his hope. My takeaway is that his energy was fueled by his love of his country, combined with his strong belief that Putin and the Russian government are corrupt. That love and that conviction required him to use his life energy to try to change the system, to speak out, to act. His passions turned into potential energy. He hoped, he believed that something could change, even if it was unlikely to change during his life, and therefore he must act, whatever the cost. His inner flame, that potential energy, and then his action was fueled by what he saw might be possible. Now, the way I see it, the United States is creeping toward a similarly desperate reality. Misinformation, corruption, extreme polarities, hate. But it doesn't have to continue in that direction, because what also exists are those who, like Navalny, are standing up for what's right, people who are choosing love and stepping back. And by stepping back to take a look at how the arc of the universe has actually been bending toward justice over time, they are seeing what is possible. And those people are people like you, people who act, even if what we dream doesn't come to fruition in our lifetimes. One of my favorite quotes comes from the Talmud, and that quote is, "Do not be daunted by the enormity of the world's grief. Do justice now, love mercy now, walk humbly now. You are not obligated to complete the work, but neither are you free to abandon it." Unquote. We must act. We can't abandon the project. Even when there are so many things that suck our energy, so many things that are seemingly hopeless, so that we become despairing. But I think there's something about knowing that you don't have to do it all, that you can't fix it all, and that even all of us together can't build a perfect world. And that is kind of restorative to think about that, because this is a tool that helps us to build up our store of potential energy, this recognition that while we each have the agency to do something, it's not required that we do it all, and certainly not by ourselves. There are people all around us and all around the world who are helping to do the work. And is there inspiration in knowing that even if it won't be perfect, we can, for sure, build a better world? Even though it seems to move further and further away with every step we take toward it, a vision of a better world just keeps us moving on, one foot in front of the other. As Solnit puts it, the idea of heaven, heaven on earth, is something to use to navigate earth by. It's not a destination we can achieve. So vision is another great tool. Having a vision of what we're aiming for, what we believe can be, this keeps us moving forward and keeps building our potential energy. I believe that there is indeed this toolbox that we can go to whenever we need to build up potential energy, because to have a recharged battery is to have potential energy, and that potential energy makes it possible to have hope, to take action, As I said earlier, we all have different ways to recharge: meditation, Netflix, art. Sometimes we're even lent a hand, like a magical Tim who appears to raise the pendulum and to fill us all with ready and waiting possibilities. There are so many tools that can help us build potential energy. What about this one? A friend shared this with me just yesterday. One of our tools is long arms. Because when something is really important to us and it feels really urgent, it's like there's this hand right in front of our face. We can't see. It's so big, we just can't see the whole of it, and it just stops us. And so use your long arms and move your hand out. Just back away from it and take the long view. Solnit tells us that long-term activism is like mushrooms or fungi. It's spreading and growing all over underground. And when we become aware of that and trust its presence, we can see that change can suddenly arise from deep roots in the past or from long dormant seeds. And when we see all of that, we know we're not alone and that there are more solutions or possibilities than we could even imagine with that hand right in front of our face. So use your long arm to see the big picture. And here's another possible tool. That is the reminder that this is today. Seems kind of silly. This is today. It's not yesterday. It's not last year. It's not a decade ago. Today is full of possibilities that were not present before. Today is not Groundhog's Day. It does not have to be a repeat of what happened before. We can release patterns that didn't work. We can let go of past failures. We can learn from the things that went wrong. The way the things have gone before does not determine how they'll go in the future. And just knowing this is a great tool. Claim today as the day that it is. Now this one maybe surprises you, I don't know. I think it helps to put a little struggle into your toolbox. In the classic book, A Pedagogy of Hope, Paola Fieri says that without a minimum of hope, we cannot so much as start the struggle, but without the struggle, hope as an ontological need dissipates, loses its bearings, and turns into hopelessness, unquote. And I guess that means that being in the very midst of the struggle can be a source of potential energy. The struggle can be motivating. It can give us energy and purpose. Let's not forget that the word emerge is contained within the word emergency. Out of the struggle, the chaos, out of the uncertainty, new things can come forth. And all of these tools not only build potential energy, they can help address our fear and our anxiety and reduce the overwhelm that's such an energy suck. We know that fear can be crippling, so we need any and all antidotes for fear that we can find. Participate in joy. Lean on each other. Tell stories that are healing and that recognize the truth of the good that we can do and be. Celebrate milestones and victories. Don't forget the small acts that throughout history have changed the world. Dance, sing, share your light. Take rests when you need them. Recharge your battery, and then rise up and do it again. Some of you may know Andra Day's song, Rise Up. The lyrics say, all we need is hope, and we'll rise up, rise like the waves. We'll rise up in spite of the ache. We'll rise up and we'll do it 1,000 times again. Over the past few days, whenever I'd mentioned that I was working on a message about hope, people seem to want to share their thoughts. It's like hope is on our collective mind. A Canadian colleague shared these words of Matthew Crow, who I don't know, but who said, "People speak of hope as if it is this delicate, ephemeral thing made of whispers and spider webs. It's not. Hope has dirt on her face, blood on her knuckles, the grit of the cobblestones in her hair, and she just spat out a tooth as she rises for another go." unquote. Hope is hard. Hope is hard work. It's messy. Don't give up. Because hope is possible. Together with using our energy for action, hope happens when we choose to focus on the world that we want to create. You know, the Anglican priest and author Barbara Brown Taylor tells the story of being invited many years ago by a wise old priest to come to speak at his church. And so she asked him, "What do you want me to talk about?" His answer, "Come tell us what is saving your life now." She writes that those words felt like he had swept his arm across a dusty table and brushed all the formal china to the ground. Because rather than her feeling like she needed to provide all the answers, all she had to do was figure out what her life depended on and then share it. When we know what our life depends on, what matters most, I believe that's when we find hope in the dark, because that knowledge will always motivate us to keep going, to turn to each other for support, to get out our toolbox and to keep up the struggle, to refuse to give up, even when it seems hopeless. And so, in the days ahead, whatever happens, know that your life matters, that what you choose to do with your energy matters, that how you spend that energy matters, and what we do together matters greatly. These things are always undeniably true. There is hope in the dark. There is. So be it.